So Matthias, we both work in travel and we meet at an AI conference. Are you more comfortable in this environment or in travel?
To be honest, I have done both, but I feel a little bit more technically competent here still. So I'm happy that it's an AI conference.
It's definitely opposite for me. I'm learning so much today. So you've been at Kayak for 6 years and 3 in your current role, right?
Yeah, it's going to be 6 in October, which feels very fast.
Yeah, so when you started, I guess that's about as long as I've been in travel, a little bit shorter than I've been in travel tech. I think when you started, Kayak had a lot of work to do with the basics of its app, getting some things running stronger, and there was you moved on to a lot of NLP integration with different platforms like Alexa and Slack. Does that sound about right to characterize your earlier years in the role?
I would say so, and it fits very nicely. So Kayak, from its beginning, has always been trying to disrupt travel with tech. And we would used to have, in the old days, we would have an AOL instant messenger bot. AOL somehow disappeared. And then later, this, not the same thing, but following that idea, we're back on like Facebook Messenger, on Amazon Alexa, and on Slack. So, and this time, the idea had more traction, and the technology was much, much more interesting. But a little bit of repetition, and also like that, there's always been us really thinking about many, many different cool new ideas, how we can make the experience different.
How has traction been for those things, the bots and Alexa skills, and is that where you thought it would be?
I think they're really having a specific role in a certain part of the travel funnel, which is not booking. But the messenger integration, for instance, is really great when you're traveling and you're receiving notifications that your flight is going to be delayed, that your gate changed, things like that. And that's where they have their specific different roles in part of your journey. Booking is still dominantly on the mobile phone and on the iPad and on the browser.
And people want to see things, I think, so
you want to know all the details.
So you're moving around solving different problems, and more recently you've been doing deeper work in personalization. And I want to just set the stage real quickly in terms of what are the challenges for personalization in travel. So the average American takes 3 or 4 leisure trips a year. Those trips can be very different from time to time, who you're traveling with, why you're traveling. And so it's difficult, and online travel has grappled with expectations for better personalization for a long time against that limited amount of data that isn't necessarily consistent. So here we are in 2019. Is machine learning finally in a place to spur a breakthrough in travel personalization?
I would briefly say yes, but let's go a little bit deeper here. So it is true, like when we talk about recommendation systems, we often think about watching movies, and you do that a lot, more than you book a flight ticket. But at the same time, there is still a lot that can be done, and this is where the big data and the AI plays in just kind of the more coarse segmenting and the more like similar crowds. So like let's say a very simple example could be like that. If we see that you're accessing our services from Boston and we may never have seen you before, there are still very high chances that you're interested in the Cape because that's where everyone goes right now. And that's a very simple example, but you can make this further in sort of like, let's say you now start giving us more information, like you start looking for a hotel and you say that your party is 6 persons. So that gives totally different results that are relevant to you than if it's just you alone or 2 persons. Like suddenly you want to see apartments, suddenly you want to see more family-friendly things. And so there's a lot of personalization just from a little bit of information that we have. And then, of course, there's the further personalization that at some point we know your name, at some point we know what you don't like this or that airline. At some point we can suggest you, hey, in your previous search, you really only wanted to see non-stop flights. Probably now you want to only see non-stop flights again. And this is where it can get better and better. And even that you're not using our site every day, there is still this personalization that helps you finding things faster, based also from all the other information we got from like people similar like you.
So, an obvious place to get that information might be Facebook. And I understand that you've changed significantly how you're working with Facebook now. But I'd like to go back first and find out what was the information, the analytics, the segmentation that you were getting through Facebook that helped you build personalization into Kayak.
So the interesting thing here is that Facebook is mostly let me start here. So the way how we always have been using Facebook is really more for the marketing side of things and personalized marketing, of course. So like the example would be you're in the market for a flight. Sometimes it can take you weeks until you book that flight, and you may go to 10 different sites in that process. And of course, each of these 10 sites is interested that you finally convert there. And one tool is that we start trying to get you back in your Facebook feed, in your Instagram feed, and we try to get you back, like, let's say, with your exact travel details that you used the last time, and maybe an updated price. And so we never had the procedure that we would like look at your friends, or that we would look at your pictures, or that we would look at the places where you have been before. The way how Facebook works for us is that it's really a remarketing platform.
All right, but then there've been some issues, right? Report that came out last year revealed that Facebook was gathering data on your users, even users that didn't even have a Facebook account or weren't logged in through Facebook, and that spurred some changes in how you're collecting user data or how you are targeting users. What happened?
Look, so it has always been our principle that the safety of our user data is key to our business. And as much as we don't generally collect a lot of user data, even just these little pieces are really key to us, that the user is in the control, and then they don't go anywhere else. What this report, which was a great report, pointed out that basically everyone who was using the Facebook SDK, and we were one of them, and we were one of many travel apps, basically was sending a lot of more information to Facebook than they were thinking. And then again, also like for people who want to get out of Facebook. And what made that changes is really that we stopped using their SDK. We wanted to get full control of what data points go over there and not let basically their software pick it. But we also really changed our approach of like how deep do we want to go in retarget someone somewhere else, because what really changed here is that as much as we have the remarketing, which is very legit for the business, we also have to be really careful what data needs to flow to facilitate that remarketing. And with certain partners, there is the public view that this data collection may not be in their interest.
So that sounds like, so what are you then replacing that with? If you need to move away, from sharing so much, how do you still reach and optimize users?
So the way we do it is the biggest goal we have, or the biggest action we do here, is that we do many more data processing in-house. We really became much stricter with using third parties. And let me give you one example. If you're trying to use marketing tools out of the box, you usually go to a third-party platform that does all the segmentation for you, that does all the filtering for you. And we now move to a model where we're doing the segmentation ourselves, and instead of now marketing somebody who wants to go to Paris on July 10th, we are rather marketing to as much as anonymized users as possible who want to travel to Europe in summer, or travel to France in summer, to that matter. And the jury is still out how well that is working, but what we generally see is that if you look at the trend of online and e-commerce in general, there has been a little bit of race of, if I throw in more user data, I get a little bit of more conversion. Like if I know where the user is, I can better address them, because I right now know they are in the gym, and so they don't want to see it, but now they're on the commute, they want to see it. And we really strengthen our decision of saying, like, we don't want to play this. Like, we first of all challenge is there really a benefit from just adding more and more user data, but we also just don't want to have all that user data, and we just don't want to abuse user data to squeeze another percentile of conversion. and rather make optimizations to our conversions and focus our energy on optimizations that don't involve collecting more user data or using more user data. And I think if you look at anyone, there are many things you can do before you have to start tracking your users.
So if you're, talk a little bit about implementation, if you're moving away from working with third parties, including Facebook and Google, on segmentation and on targeting, what can you share about what has to be done to implement?
So yeah, let me give you the example on the segmentation. What we did there is that we created in-house tooling that allows our marketing and our business team to simply create segments. So like instead of going to a third-party tool where they would define, I now want to reach everyone interested in flights to Paris, we would have our own tooling where we generate these segments, and then later we would basically, for the outside, we would now market to segment number 1. And the outside would not necessarily even know what segment number 1 is. Of course, there is then a creative that says flights to Paris. But it's really about building tooling and a console that allows us basically building a segmentation platform. And the interesting thing here is what we realized is that it opens up many more interesting things we can do, because like you don't want to just segment your advertising. You also want to segment your email marketing. You want to segment your push marketing. There are so many things that suddenly become much, much easier when you have all your segmentation in one place, instead of doing it in all kind of different systems with different taxonomies and different data sets and all that.
And what would you say as far as the investment has been like in terms of, putting resources behind bringing this in-house? Is that something, we've got companies of all sizes at this event, and you're part of a pretty huge company in Booking Holdings. Is it realistic for companies of various sizes to implement what you're doing?
I can't give you an exact number, but it's definitely a dedicated team for that effort that hasn't been there before. It is true that like if you were a company with maybe 5 employees, my recommendation, you definitely don't start building this. My recommendation would rather be like, instead of using 10 services at the same time, take the one you like the most and at least keep it in one place like that. But I think at our size, which isn't as big as you might think, or even bigger, I think it is definitely affordable, because even if you get into enterprise products of the same grade, they don't come for free either. So I think it's a very well investment, and especially like there is the user privacy aspect and the data safety aspect. You can't really put a price tag on it anyways. So if you think about the use case, even if you have a free segmentation platform and suddenly all the data gets lost, that's going to be a very big fine. So that's the way to reverse price tag of
potential costs.
Not sending data somewhere else.
So travel is unique, or at least unusual, in that Google has a very robust product aimed at travel, and particularly for a Kayak, competitive to your products. And users, of course, are sharing all kinds of information with that competitor, Google, without even thinking about it. Are you looking to compete by getting users to share information with Kayak, or how do you look at that they have access to that you currently don't?
Look, I mean, we are really not a data broker, and our mission is that we want to make travel smooth. And the closest product, and you may have seen Google Trips has just been shutting down, but it's a very similar functionality, what we have always been doing, called Kayak Trips, which is a product that you use to manage your itineraries. And Kayak is a meta search engine, so a lot of the travel you do will be booked on some other site, so we don't necessarily know that you booked. But now we allow you to, again, import that into Kayak Trips. But we don't import that, like, if you forward us your receipt that you take a flight on, let's say, JetBlue, we only use it for the purpose of showing it in your itinerary and nothing else. So we don't use that to sell you a hotel in that place or anything like that. It's really just for your purpose of having everything in one place where you can manage your travel.
So again, this challenge of personalization within travel. One thing that I've heard more about recently within the space is looking to quickly improve recommendations for users within a session. Is that something that Kayak is working on or getting better at?
So we're definitely thinking about that, and there have always been some examples. Like a simple example would be if you are searching for the same thing multiple times, we might suggest you to create a price alert because it seems like you don't know yet what dates you should pick. So it seems that you have a bit of flexibility, and that's a price alert is a great product. That's definitely something where we are headed to, and a great opportunity. And we are, all I can say right now is that we are really constantly improving it. But like, yeah, an example would be something that at some point the system may filter something for you, or like I'm not sure if you may know that on Kayak you can search for flights that you cannot just search for the exact dates. You can also have a flexibility of +- 3 days on both sides. And users may not know that right off the way, so we can give them a little hint of like saying, hey, by the way, you could save a lot of work by just using that option. And then there are also like all these insights that we're trying to provide to users, like saying like, choose a different airport, choose another day, and many of these kind of like smart things where we try to make the experience better.
Yeah, there's the flexible dates and then the recommendation or price prediction tools that have gotten much better within travel meta search. What has it taken to get that done?
Yeah, so a lot, and it's a really interesting problem, and we've been working a lot on that recently. So the whole price prediction and the predicting where the prices are going has really keeping us busy for, I would say, at least a year. You see a lot of these features right now on our page. Like it starts with the calendar with the colors on the home page. There is an overview on the mobile phone where you can basically, if you're looking from Thursday to Sunday travel, you can kind of like go through every Thursday, Sunday for the next weeks. And there's a lot of predictive functionality now that is really based on state-of-the-art machine learning that like every night it needs to get refreshed with hundreds of gigabytes of data that goes in there. And this is really something that users want to see. And the powerful thing here is that still today, searching for real-time availability is extremely heavy from a computation. It involves hundreds of our partners and all that. And now if we have the ability to give you accurate predictions of what the price would be, we can immediately do all these things like you should go a day earlier, you should get from another airport, you should try this, you should try that. And that's extremely powerful for the user.
I have a note from Matt to ask about changes in the toolkits that you're using, and that you've moved away from Java, and you talk a little bit about sort of why you're making different changes.
Oh, I think we mixed up a couple of things. So
okay, clarify me.
Toolkit, the interesting thing is that coming more back into the field of AI is that when we talked about what keeps us busy right now, like there are two themes, and one is also very related to privacy. So there's the one theme that Kayak is mostly written in Java, which is great technology, and we keep that, but all machine learning happens in Python. So one theme that we're following right now is how do we get Python working in our Java environment in real time so that we can ship all these machine learning and AI features even faster without having to do the conversion. And the other thing is that in the light of privacy is that we are also really trying, if we need certain personal data just for making one specific decision, like a simple example could be determining if you are done with booking or if you're still kind of like in the flow. We try to do that all on the device and just not send it ever back to our servers anymore, because we don't want to have the data, you don't want to have the data on the wire, and so we're trying to put a lot of more. So in consequence, you will also see over time that more and more machine learning has to basically run on the devices, like on the mobile phones. And also one example there is it's like not 100% AI, but if you look at, we have this feature where you can scan the size of your bag using AR. And when you use that, you don't need a network or anything, because like everything is just on your phone. Like even if it's just the pictures of your bag, they're never going to go to our servers.
I want to pull it back to the privacy questions a little bit. So Kayak has a range of users based all over the world, different age demographics, some loyal users, some more casual users. When you are thinking about privacy as you plot your AI strategy, is there a baseline user that you have in mind, or how do you think about what user demands or needs might be for privacy and personalization?
Yeah, so let me briefly answer. I think the kind of gold standard right now for what the user wants is probably GDPR, which is the regulation in Europe. And at this point, that's what we consider as a baseline for our global business. So let me give you a simple example. In Europe, if you are a user under GDPR, you have the right that you have access to the data that websites collect on you and businesses. And you don't have such a right in the US right now. So you could make the decision saying like, okay, I allow users in Europe to get their data, but there is no point giving that in the US because I'm not going to be fined for not making that available in the US. But the route we go here is saying like, if we have that feature, like we added a new feature that you can just download the data we have on you anytime, and why should it not be available in the US as well? There is a bit of a future-proof aspect to it, like California privacy law coming out, New York privacy law coming out, but also it's a great feature and it adds transparency. Why not give it to everyone? So I think the short answer is it's really mostly mandated by GDPR, and we think that as much as you could say that also European users, as a biggest example, have always been a bit more sensitive on the matter. They are, first of all, right in that sensitivity. And also you can expect that this is going to be a more global phenomena in the upcoming years.
So at Kayak, you're within Booking Holdings, and there's all these other brands. There's Booking, Agoda, Momondo, OpenTable. How much are you sharing user data across brands?
So first of all, you're probably referring to, we recently updated our privacy policy that there is the opportunity to share data within our group. For example, when we want to work together on detecting fraud. What's happening right now is that in that process, we added for our users a data sharing control. Basically, if you are a registered user on Kayak, you can now decide if you are agreeing with sharing your data with Booking Holdings, family companies, with travel partners, and with business partners. And that at least would apply if we would have like a data exchange. Let's say if we wanted to compare, if we wanted to kind of like, if Booking suddenly wanted to market Kayak users, that would be one of the things. There's nothing mentionable right now that I would have at the top of my mind, but once this comes, the important thing here is that we have the control that for things where it makes sense, that users can just say like, I really love Kayak, but I don't want to be marketed by Priceline, for instance.
So for AI applications in travel, and specifically for you at Kayak, what's around the corner that you're excited about working on?
So personally, first of all, I think the highest impact I'm still seeing in getting these prices right. Because if you think of, like I recently heard the story that, the story was that one of the biggest European carriers, they basically have one full-time person just optimizing flights from Germany to Los Angeles. So there is game theory and everything you can think about, right? And not that it should be our goal to basically reverse engineer this single person, but like availability and exact pricing would be really gold for technology, for a platform like ours that wants to show users the best results the fastest. So that's really what I'm most excited about. And then everything like when should you book, how long should you wait, what's going to be the best price, what's going to be the worst price, all that. Outside of that, I'm also really impressed by everything that's now possible in image processing. And I really like it from a way that it's really a difference of night and day if these, like as soon as these hotel images are suddenly good images and they're nicely ordered, you can find something in there. And that, like, when I'm looking for a hotel, it's really helpful that I can just say like, okay, is there an image of the gym, and I don't have to hunt it down. and it also follows some quality standards. So that's very impressive, but yeah, I think the biggest gain is going to be predicting prices still.
Okay, and do you think, so we're almost out of time, if we're back here next year, is that something, do you think you'll be ready to talk about, that you've nailed it, or do you think we'll be talking about hotel images? What are we most likely to be this time next year, you'd be excited to share about from Kayak?
I think ideally next year we would be sitting here and we would talk about an extremely precise, perfect way of getting a push notification when you have to book that flight. And I think we really made a lot of breakthrough in the previous year, and I see that this is really now at the time where we can convert that into even, like we experimented at least like 10 different features out of the data already, and I'm thinking that we are really close now to get to the point where you really want to come to Kayak to know if this is the best price and if you should book now or if you should wait. Okay, great, thank you. Please join me in thanking Matthias Keller, Chief Scientist at Kayak. Thank you.